There are two main ways that we communicate when we drive, with our vehicles and with our bodies. And there are two main ways in which we communicate with both of those, which I'll call conscious and non-conscious. When we communicate with our vehicles, we do it consciously by using mainly the various lights, with the turn signals being by far the most used of them. And on the auditory side, we use, or maybe I should say, overuse the horn. And we do it non-consciously by the way we position and handle the vehicle itself. When we communicate with our bodies, consciously, we usually do it with our hands. And when we do it non-consciously, that's usually with our head or the position of our body in general. In the first videos, we'll take a look at the vehicle, and after that, the body. Let's start with the most used accessory, the turn signals, also called the blinkers or flashers. I don't like the name turn signals because it implies only turning, but they're used for more than that. In this video, I'll use the term flashers. Now when I say it's the most used accessory, I mean by some people. Which brings me to the most important thing about the flashers: use them. By looking at drivers in general, you'd get the idea that turn signals are optional. They're not, they're mandatory. It takes a fraction of a second to stretch your fingers, and that'll burn about 1,000th of a calorie, so use them. Now one thing you shouldn't do is to do multiple maneuvers with a single flasher. You put the flasher for the first maneuver, then if you need to do one or more maneuvers after that, you stop the flasher, then put it again. And you do that for every successive maneuver. By doing that, you're indicating clearly that you want to do more than one maneuver. And don't put them too early or too late. Putting the flasher too late is like not putting it at all. The purpose of the turn signals is to indicate to other road users that you're about to make a maneuver. If you put them too late, people might not have enough time to react. Also here, this driver should clearly have waited before we both passed before going. There was only the vehicle in front and me behind him. So in a situation like this, it's better to wait. Same thing when waiting to turn. Put the flasher in advance. Like that, people behind can also make their decision to change lanes in advance. Here, if there were vehicles to my right, I'd have to wait until this driver in front turned. Here, I can make my move in advance. When we put it too early, then other drivers don't know anymore when we want to make the maneuver. For example, here this driver has put it already here, and he passes all these parking lot entrances while flashing, so I don't know where they want to turn. Turns out they want to go into the gas station, so in that case, they should have put their flasher about here, right after the last entrance before the one that they want to turn into. Which brings me to this, a mistake that fails students sometimes at the exam. Most vehicle department offices where you go to do your driving exam are located in shopping centers or similar locations where you'll be exiting a parking lot right at the start of the exam. And often, the exit is close to an intersection. So sometimes another driver is approaching with their flasher on, and the student thinks they want to turn onto the parking lot. But what happens quite often is that the driver wants to turn at the next intersection. So the student starts advancing to exit, they get braked, and they fail. So in a situation like this, make sure that you know exactly the intention of the driver. Don't start moving until you know for sure that they want to turn into the parking lot. Sometimes using your turn signals incorrectly can be worse than not using them at all. Use them also when you're either getting out of a parking spot or entering one. You see, people tend to see flashers as something that we use only for turning and changing lanes. And actually, when you're exiting or entering a parking spot like this, you are changing lanes. This is going from one lane to another, so use the flasher. This driver here, I have absolutely no idea that they're about to exit. To me, it's simply a parked car like all the others. If at least I saw a light on, I'd know that there was someone in the car. Like here, for example. Just by seeing the brake lights on, I know from afar that there's someone in the vehicle, and I keep that in mind when passing them. The flashers are not only for indicating that we're about to make a maneuver, they're also for visibility. You're looking for a parking spot, an address, or you need to slow down for whatever reason, put the flasher. Here I don't want to stay stuck behind this driver, but at the same time I hesitate to pass them because they could move to the left at any time. Especially in situations like this when people tend to be distracted. So in a situation like this, put the flasher to the right while you're looking for whatever, then if you have the intention of reintegrating the middle of the street, put it to the left. Use them also when you have several options. Here the lane I'm in can go both straight and to the left. So even if you're not changing lanes, if you go to the left, put the flasher. Now notice this driver flashing to the right and pointing the vehicle to the left. What happened here is that the driver came from this yield here, they had their flasher to the right, and they forgot to turn it off. Which brings me to this, something that creates a lot of confusion, not only among beginners, but also a lot of experienced drivers. When you're exiting a yield, you put your flasher to the left, not to the right. You put it to the right as you're approaching the yield to indicate to the drivers behind that you're going into the yield. But then when you're exiting, you put it to the left to indicate to the drivers on the perpendicular axis that you want to enter the lane they're on. At this point, the drivers behind already know what I want to do. So now I want to indicate to the drivers here that I want to go into their lane. Now I hear you say, yes, but the drivers here should also know that I want to go into their lane. Probably, but again, visibility. You want to be more visible to them, especially in conditions where visibility is reduced, like if I'm driving on a rainy day and I have a dark colored vehicle, for example. So when you're exiting a yield, think about it as a lane change to the left, not a right turn. So that's 4 mistakes in a row in about 10 seconds for this driver. Flashing to the right when exiting the yield, crossing 2 lanes in one maneuver, crossing those 2 lanes to the left while flashing to the right, and forgetting to turn off the flasher. Hope they're not doing their exam. Now here's the last one. Here, the street is a one-way to the right, and with all these signs, all the drivers behind me should have noticed that. So do I still have to put the flasher? Yes. There's a park in front, and there could be pedestrians, cyclists, or any other kind of road user wanting to cross the street, and they might not have noticed that the street is a one-way. Sorry, this is the last one. Make sure that you put the turn signal to the side where you want to go. In the next video, the other lights, especially the hazard lights, how and when to use them, and when not to use them. So stay tuned and see you soon.